You didn't take it off. Absolute.
What have I done? Whoa, something now.
I'll sort it out.
There we go. There we go.
You had one job and you've let us down, Oscar.
What a start. What a start. What a start, eh? But
You've had a long day.
This is why you love us. This is why you love us, because it's just our perfect imperfections, isn't it? You know, we don't ever get anything spot on. There's always something. There's always something that happens when I lead anyway, guys. But we are joined. Leeds versus Aston Villa. Opposition post-match. We're joined by Neil from the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. How are you doing, mate?
I'm doing great. Thanks a million, guys, for having me on. Absolutely great.
Pleasure.
No problem at all, mate. And Chris from Rivalry Aside TV. How are things, man?
All good, thanks. Cheers, mate.
So look, this game, since Marcelo Bielsa took charge of Leeds United, it's been a really feisty couple of games, hasn't it? Been some really good ones, and I don't expect anything less this weekend. I think it's two teams that play on the front foot. I mean, Chris, to start with you, mate, obviously there's two big injuries that I'm looking at straight away as a Leeds United fan. Matty Cash at right back, Jack Grealish out wide or in the number 10 role. It looks like both are going to be out of this game. How much of a loss are both of those players? Obviously, Grealish is the big one, but surely Matty Cash is as well. It's been a pretty big loss in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, the Grealish loss is, anyone, you don't have to be a Villa fan to realise how big of a loss that is. The Matty Cash one, Neil will agree, he's been one of our best players this season. And it's not just a case of, being a fullback that gets up and down. He kind of sets he just sets the tone for us, I think, defensively. One thing that obviously Leeds are well known for, is their press. I think Matty Cash is one of the better players in our team. For his press. So, coming up against good wingers, he's just, he's by far, he's best right back we've had for a while, to be fair. He kind of ticks all the boxes. It's a big loss because, even if a winger gets past him a couple of times, Matty Cash he'll just keep coming back. Defending's been fantastic this season, and he just seems to have just set the tone for us defensively, which has been really good this season. And yeah, it is a real big loss. El Mohammadi coming in, he's competent. Obviously, he's got however many, 800,000 caps for Egypt, and he's played in the Premier League. But, the pace and that side of things coming up against, the likes of Harrison and people, Harvey Barnes last week, there is that worry that people can get past him too easy. So, yeah, both massive losses, to be fair.
Stick Rafinha on that left,
yeah,
Oscar. As soon as I see Matty Cash was out, because I do rate Matty Cash. He was in our championship team of the season last year because we moved when we did ours. I just moved Ayling in at centre backs. I thought Matty Cash was that good. So he's a great player and a massive loss. And I think we've seen Rafinha play on the left against Bednarak against Southampton, and he's not a recognised right back. And I know that I'd expect Bielsa to do exactly the same up against El Hamadi, and I think he'll have him on toast. And it's a real area that I'm rubbing my hands. As you said it, I'm like, yes, we can get at him 100%. So, and obviously Grealish is such a loss. He's a great player. Leeds fans, we're not that keen. It is what it is, but you can't deny the kid's talent, man. He's a fantastic player.
Totally. So, I mean, how old's El Mohammadi now? I'm just thinking he's played at Sunderland, he's played at Hull. He's been around for just forever. I mean, he must be mid-30s now, surely.
He's 43.
43.
He's doing quite well.
I don't think it wouldn't surprise me. I know obviously you're messing, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, as Jonathan says there, 45, but
I think he's 30, 34.
33, 34, yeah.
Yeah, it seems about that, yeah. But I know what you mean. It does seem like he's been around for ages, doesn't it?
It's a thing, isn't it? It's but Neil, I mean, do you fear that going into this game? Obviously, Rafinha, he swapped over to the left-hand side against Southampton because they had Jan Bednarak playing at right back, a centre-back playing right back. I know obviously Al Mohammadi's a recognised right back, but as Joe says, he's not the best, to be fair. In comparison to Matty Cash, do you fear that battle at all in terms of the form Rafinha's in from a Villa perspective?
You'd absolutely have to, and I suppose the big thing that I do is I'm harking back to the to the first game that we played against you guys this season, and there was an awful lot of starting attacks out on your right hand side, and then just basically overloading that right hand side to leave one-on-one battles between Harrison and Cash. And when we have Matty Cash there, Matty Cash, what I thought he did pretty well, he was still under pressure an awful lot. So when the ball went wide, Jack Harrison was right in the touchline, and it was a straight run at Matty Cash. Now, if that happens to Matty Cash, and you take out Matty Cash, should I say, that happens to Mohammedi, I'm not quite sure how that's going to happen. And I think really, I'm not worried about Ahmed Mohammedi's experience, about how he knows how to play the game, because he knows how to play the game. It's that yard and a half that he's going to be missing. That's what's going to kill you. But I think it's going to be super, super important who is in front of him on Saturday, because like recently we've been playing Bertrand Traore up there sorry, I'm getting all choked up because of Jack Grealish being out. Sorry, I'm only joking. But it depends on who you play in front of him, whether it be whether they do something like they show up the midfield, whether they bring in somebody like Marvelous Nakamba, or whether they just stick Trezeguet inside there and have that Egyptian connection there. But look, you always want your best players, especially when you're playing against a team that likes to attack and break really, really quickly. You mentioned about Rafinha against Bednarak and against Southampton as well. Look, you see for the very first goal, the first goal really opened it up. When Leeds score first, they're bloody difficult to get back if you have to try and chase the game, because you leave open spaces and they attack them. That first goal was criminal from the right back in the centre half, whatever. There was just an absolute alleyway down the middle there, and Bamford will stick it. He might be going to the Euros this year, so he's going to do the damage. So it is concerning down that side, especially when you see what happened to Southampton when they had a small bit of an auxiliary situation going on in their back four too.
Miss Wayman, can't hear you, mate.
My bad. It's actually 5 wins on the bounce now since Leeds have gone in front. We know under Bielsa, he's had a fantastic record anyway. Like the first season in the Championship, when you guys were in there, we hadn't lost from a winning position all season until Wigan, and then the wheels fell off. But it's a constant thing with Leeds United under Bielsa. If we do get in front, then 9 times, well, like say 5 on the bounce now, and that's very hard to do in the Premiership. Do you know what I mean? So the fact that you bang on, Neil, I think if Leeds get in front, then the first goal in any game when Leeds play is so crucial.
Yeah, you can't leave the space there. It's as simple as that. And to be honest with you, same with Villa. You even look back at games. We'll take the Arsenal game. For the most recent Arsenal game, we scored after 90 seconds. We piled everybody back. We defended like our lives depended on it, and we're really good at that. Sometimes we're not as good at taking the game to other teams, and we weren't as good at doing that with Jack Grealish in it. So it stands to reason that we would be very fearful of going 1 down against a team like Leeds. We went 2-0 down against Leicester. We had a bit of a fight back at the start of the second half, and we did start to take the game, brought in a bit of legs in Jacob Ramsey, brought in Morgan Sanson. We started to get a small bit of dancing feet in there in the middle of midfield, and we kind of threw caution to the wind a small bit, and Leicester kind of did what we normally do. They filed back. We got a couple of chances, but we would have been lucky to come away with a 2-2 draw. It wouldn't have been against the realms of possibility with the attacking we did, but we would have been lucky enough to come away with a 2-2 draw. But you can't do that against Leeds, because the space is just there to be capitalised upon. And, we fell victim of it the first time as well,
No, absolutely. I mean, I'd be interested to see what your guys' take was of the last game. Obviously, the 3-0 in October. To be fair, I thought an unbelievable game of football. I know, obviously, in the end, we won it quite comfortably. But for me, Neil, in that game, at 0-0, I think we cleared one off the line of Grealish. I think Grealish had another chance. We had chances as well in that first half. And that first half was like, wow, in terms of just end-to-end, just madness. And then when we scored, we kind of took over at that point. But what was your take on that 3-0 game, Chris? And obviously Villa, at the time, I think he's won the first 4 or 5 games of the season. And to be fair, it's not affected you because you're still kept on that kind of upward trajectory.
Yeah, it was. Do you know what? Like you said, there was. I think Grealish had one cleared off the line just before half time. Then he had that chance where he ran from, 30 yards from his own goal. Melier made a good save. And then after that, it kind of Leeds turned the screw. I think, in all fairness, even though the game could have gone either way, around the, either side of half time. I think realistically, when you look at it, the balance of play, Leeds had more chances. They had, more possession. They were getting at us. And like Neil mentioned about Matty Cash, it seemed like that Harrison v Cash battle was going on right from the first minute. And, Matty Cash did quite well. Whoever played right wing, which was probably Traore, based on the fact that he didn't have any support, it just seemed like, there was no one within 50 yards of Matty Cash, and he was defending for his life. So I think, although it could have gone either way, which I suppose has been the case with a lot of Leeds games this season, where Leeds haven't put their chances away and then maybe, they've gone behind, it could have been one of those games for Leeds. But then as soon as Leeds scored, there's only going to be one winner. I suppose when you look at it and you look at two of Bamford's goals, they were world class, weren't they? The way he's kind of, both goals, he's put them, in a position where Martinez can't save them. So it was one of them, probably a lot of games Leeds have had where it's on, it looks like it's on the edge, and then Leeds come. And I think deservedly Leeds came away with a 3-0 win, in all fairness. And yeah, it was like you say, we'd won 4 on a spin. So to lose then, it was kind of like it was uncharted territory for us at the start of this season. So it was really gutting. But it's one of them. So
it was great for us at the time. I mean, really great.
I can imagine.
You bang on. Sorry, Neil. Because you could argue the Southampton was very similar. They had a few chances. Vestergaard had a header, which normally you expect him to finish, and then it's that second half, and whether or not that's due to Bielsa and his tactical tweaks. I was listening to something earlier, and like the decision to bring Strauch off early in the game, as early as he did, and it really changed it in our favour. And he's not afraid to do that. We've seen him before bring off Calvin in the Championship after 20 minutes. If he notices something going, and if we can get to half time, 9 times out of 10. We're a totally different side. We even seen that against Arsenal when we were already beat. We're a totally different side. So I think you bang on.
Yeah, I was just going to say there as well that, I suppose the one, I'm not going to say shining light because you never want to revel in anybody's injuries or anything like that, but the 2 players that I thought that really changed the game for Leeds that day was, and you mentioned it there, Strike came off and Shackleton came in. Shackleton came in and he was like as if someone put a firework up his arse. Like he was just everywhere. He was flying around the place. And Matthias Klitsch, it was brilliant that day. I thought he was amazing. He was just that, I hope you don't mind me saying, he was that nasty guy in midfield who was just putting his foot everywhere. And then next thing, then he gets it and he was carrying the ball forward, and you're like, stop tackling us and taking the ball off us and then carrying it forward. It was kind of that kind of what I consider an annoying performance where he did everything at an 8 out of 10 level, and kind of like a Gattuso type. He was almost doing it. And you almost kind of felt like he was only carrying the ball forward just to spite you, for periods in that second half. 2 of those guys are going to be missing, and they were very integral to making sure the middle of that midfield was as compact and was as I'm going to say compact and fluid at the same time, even though they're both oxymorons of each other. But you know what I mean? That when they won the ball back, they could break with Klitsch could carry the ball forward, and then Shackleton could be everywhere because he really was. He was he did an awful lot of movement around there, and obviously, as you say, they needed to do that because the tactic was very simple. It was leaving Harrison and an island out one side of the field, and then overload to the other and bring it across. But those 2 guys were super, super important.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it then, Neil, when you said that, when you asked us, I hope you don't mind me saying he was nasty. We love it when our players are described like that. We love it. I love that. When, well, to be fair, what surprised me a little bit, Neil and Chris, is you've spoken quite glowingly about Patrick Bamford and Matthias Klitsch, 2 of the protagonists in a certain incident back in April 2019, especially Matthias Klitsch. I mean, look, what's happened is happened. I think we've kind of moved on from that. We've kind of moved on. We're both in the Premier League now. We're both happy. We're both overachieving.
Speak for yourself.
I mean, I was building up like I was looking right away then as I was saying this. I'm still looking.
Do you know what it is, right? Like, I was going to ask them as well. Like, some Leeds fans might not agree with me and say, no, not a chance. But for me, there is that little bit of rivalry there now with Aston Villa. For me personally, it's a game that I want to win. I think you had obviously what happened with the goal that wasn't. There's the Jack Grealish thing. I think even Jack Grealish came out and said, for some unknown reason to him, Leeds fans just dislike him. I remember him coming out and saying that, and there is that. And then obviously there's the Dean Smith scenario, John Terry, which, you know, a lot of everyone outside of Villa probably isn't keen. But I get it. Like, this isn't me. We all have them characters or people at your football club. I suppose with us, Gianni Alioski gets looked on a bit like that. You know, if he plays for you, you love him. If he doesn't, you know, you can't stand the man kind of vibe. But yeah, for me, there is that little bit of rivalry there. You know, for me personally, anyway. I really want to beat Villa.
Yeah, the players on that Villa, in that Villa team. You know, there's a lot of history of those players. Like Mings. I mean, Mings are I'm not gonna lie, I just don't like him. I've never really liked him, to be honest. Good player, but never really been that keen. But again, if he plays for you, you'd love him. Ollie Watkins. Let's not forget Ollie Watkins back in the Brentford days when he took that dive, which in the end ended up being crucial points in our automatic promotion bid in that first season. So I think the players will care more.
We'd kill for an Ollie Watkins dive at the moment. He stays on his feet too much in the box, when he gets the ball. So I'm actually screaming at him to start diving a small bit now. But maybe he's learned his lesson from that from that escapade at Brentford.
The Leeds players need to re-release a book on diving. He might have read one when he played for Brentford. I mean, Bamford, maybe, you know.
Yeah, no. So, what are your feelings? I guess as Villa fans, for Bamford to score a hat-trick in that first game must have stung. Because for me, it would have done, you know, like for me, another one that I can't stand was Hurahan when he punched Click. And it was not picked up on. He went over and he punched him in the chest, and he's another individual I look at and think, I can't stand you, man.
That's the Irish fear, isn't it, Neil?
Yeah.
Bamford produced an RKO out of nowhere then on
I mean, Bamford was guilty, and I guess with you guys, it must have stung when it was him of all people, you know, for him to score the hat-trick.
You know, Patrick Bamford's one of them. I kind of watch him, and I watch him throwing his arms in the air and throwing himself to the floor and stuff like that. You think, what a prick. But then you hear him talk.
In my opinion, I don't think he does.
And then you hear him talk and you think, oh, he sounds like a lovely bloke.
Yes.
Why can't you be like that? And then he does stupid things like he's got 18 players around him and he puts it top corner, and you think, what's going on here? But I think it does seem like there's this rivalry, whether the players have got it as well. But there seems to be Leeds fans and Villa fans have been arguing on Twitter all year. And it kind of obviously a big part of it comes from I think you've mentioned them both, Joe. The two things is the incident where obviously the goal was given to us, rightly so, and then the other one is the other one is where people.
So sorry, Chris, but Wayman's face when you said rightly so, it was like
the only thing, and it's kind of one of them. If Codger goes down and he's injured or whatever, and if Leeds play and score normally, it's fine. But it's the way that Tyler Roberts goes across to the line and he almost, it's literally is about. He may as well have turned around and gone, "Hang on, lads, I'm about to kick this out. Just turn around for 5 seconds, and then I'll just pass the ball." He almost did that, didn't he? But that's the only thing. If Leeds carried on normally and he didn't do that, I think we could have said, "Do you know what? Play to the whistle." But it's just the way that he looked like he was going to pass it out of play, and he didn't. But it's what's happened. We got promoted, you didn't, and then you got promoted. So
you're nearly got away with it, Chris.
But and then obviously then is that all the comparisons. Oh, Dean Smith, Bielsa, Bielsa's best manager in the world. It's Pep and Bielsa, and then it's but Dean Smith, and it's kind of that seems to be something. And it's we mentioned it before we went live, didn't we? It's kind of like you're comparing different things, really, aren't you? Because their careers have totally been different, and it seems to be the whole rivalries come from that. And I like to think. Like we are here, it's kind of, bit of friendly banter and all that kind of stuff. But it seems to be a lot of people, taking it to heart and whatever on social media. So, it is what it is. It's all fun and games. It's only football at the end of the day, isn't it? So
it's apples to oranges, as we said, because Dean Smith has Dean Smith, number one, I suppose, isn't the finished article as a manager, especially not at the top level. Whereas Bielsa has been at the top level. He took an unfashionable team to the World Cup and made stars out of players, out of certain players. Like he took a fabulous Chelsea team. Jesus, said Celtic then after Philly team. I'll get there, guys. Bear with me. A Chile team to and he managed them, should I say? And he managed them very well. He's just a very good manager, a well-respected manager, and there's good managers talk about him. And Dean Smith's a different type of manager. He's a guy who's come up and just basically done his apprenticeship in the lower leagues. You ask any Villa manager, they say, yes, we absolutely love Dean Smith, just like you guys love Bielsa. He's a Villa boy. He supported Aston Villa. And, the great thing I think about Dean Smith is he's honest. He's just he's just a regular bloke. He gets things wrong. He doesn't make substitutions. That's nothing. That's not a criticism of him. It should be, but he doesn't make substitutions, but things go right for him too, so he's not the perfect entity, just like Bielsa sometimes isn't the perfect entity as well. But to put the two of them up beside each other for me is comparing apples to oranges in at the moment, because they're both very, I suppose, if you were to just take their Premier League kind of entities together, they're both very young in Premier League manager terms. And I think that's the only level playing field that you could really mark the two of them on.
I've got to come back to Chris.
Oh shit!
No. On the goal, for me, Leeds were not. We were at the time experiencing a lot of players hitting the deck, and Bielsa, after actually the Villa game, said, "We will now not," and we're putting it out there. We will now not put it out of play. I remember him saying it just so everyone knows, from now on, we will not put it out of play unless the referee stops the game. And that came on the back of the Villa thing. I get what you're saying about the Tyler Roberts situation, but I mean, for me, the goal should have stood. We shouldn't have given, a goal the other way, personally, but Bielsa, the man that he is, did that, and he won the FIFA Fair Play Award for doing that. But you are right, mate. I mean, this it is friendly, but when you're in the ground, I still remember that moment. When you're in the ground, it's a totally different kettle of fish. Everyone's baying for blood kind of vibe. And I've got a photo, actually. Someone took a photo of the Kop that game, and I remember when we scored that goal and there were flares. It was wasn't it? The back end of the season, wasn't it? There weren't that many games left.
Yeah, because it was after we'd won 10 on the row, and we won 10, and I think this was the one afterwards. Maybe we'd drawn. So, and that was the 10 game winning run started in March.
Right.
So it would have been in April, end of April, I think, this game. So yeah, I think you're right.
I remember it was a lovely day, and someone took a photo anyway of the Kop, and when we'd scored that goal, I'm stood on my chair like that, and there's smoke everywhere, and it was just one of them moments get in. And then obviously we gave one away. But yeah, I think, I don't know, from that moment, I don't know, there's just that little bit of right, for me anyway. I know I've seen a lot of people who are a lot older than me are saying in the chat there's not a rivalry, and of course it's not like the Man United one, but it's a recent one for me. You could arguably say it's the same with Derby County. I mean, I know they're very minimal, but they're still spouting stuff about us, and we love to rub their face in the mud, the fact that they might get relegated and all that sort of stuff. It's just a recent thing, and maybe after this game it'll go away, but it's a game that I'm really looking forward to. I think, if I remember rightly, you had John Terry coming out talking rubbish about, respect and all this sort of stuff, I think. And I mean, what are your thoughts on John Terry, guys? Terry
talking about respect.
No, do you not remember he had some words to say, and he was having a go with Bielsa, and Bielsa was like,
I'm sure he was just there. I'm sure I could just remember him just I don't know, I think he was talking to Bielsa, and he's just there going,
yeah.
I mean, I like John Terry. I suppose it's a tough one, because it depends how much, when you look at a footballer, which, obviously we had him playing for us before he became an assistant manager. When you look at a football, it depends how much you kind of look at that person or take from that person. And obviously, the first thing is the first thing is how good they are as a player. And obviously, we all know John Terry was brilliant. But then obviously there's the other things if you take that into consideration. And I don't think I ever have, rightly or wrongly, I don't think I ever have done. I've just looked at him. He came to Aston Villa. He played for us. He did a good job for us. And then he's been all right as an assistant manager. So, I've got a lot of time for him. But I suppose it's a case for everyone. Football fans, you have a lot of time for, players who play for your team unless they literally just sit around doing bugger all. But these days, you don't get a lot of players like that, do you, really? So, yeah, got a lot of time for the bloke. I don't know how you feel about him, Neil.
I look, he's a fantastic footballer. If you were to name your top Premier League 11 of all time, he's probably their centre half. But what I want to say about John Terry is since he's come to Aston Villa, he's been relatively anonymous. And what I mean by that is that I thought Terry comes in, it was going to be the John Terry show. I thought he'd be pushed out in front of the cameras. I thought he'd nearly grab the camera. I thought he'd tug out in the full kit on the sideline as if he was a player, like he did for that
Champions League final.
But I thought he was going to be right out there in our faces, and I thought that it might overshadow Dean Smith. But what I actually like about him is, and I don't know whether it's because I don't know Dean Smith as a person, obviously, but I don't know whether it's the measure of Dean Smith and the I suppose the kind of respect he commands, because of obviously he's trudged the fields as well as a player. But John Terry has very much been in the background, and it's been very much a case of, there was times last year when we were saying, what the hell is John Terry doing? What does he do? And then we come out after Project Restart, and our defense was absolutely spot on, and Douglas Luiz was playing a great role in midfield. And then afterwards, it was a case of, John Terry is doing something. It just takes time for these things to come through. So from the point of view, John Terry I never thought that John Terry would number one, drop down to the Championship to play for us, and he did. Then when it became apparent that John Terry wanted to go into coaching, I said, what would he want to go into coaching? He's a multi-millionaire, so he doesn't need this asset. Then all of a sudden he becomes Aston Villa's assistant coach in the Championship. And then you're going, what's like in the Championship? Like I would have thought that he was kind of a Billy Big Balls, and he would have been like, no, I just want to go straight in as manager at Chelsea. And so he's kind of showing a humble, a smart side of a humble side to him that I never actually would have ever thought was there. So when you take the competitive spirit out of the field, you're probably seeing, I'm seeing a completely different John Terry. So that's kind of my view on John Terry at the moment. I can't, and he's turning down jobs. He's turning down interviews for the Bournemouth job. He's turned down interview for, I think, Sheffield Wednesday. I think wanted to interview him. He turned that down. I don't blame him for that because of this way that club is going at the moment. But I'm seeing a different side to John Terry, the assistant manager, than I would have seen as John Terry, the player, and it's night and day. It's just two completely different people. So humble, so in the background, and you don't see an awful lot of him, which was something you would have never thought would have happened.
He seems to be like he kind of almost taken in the game, isn't he? I know obviously we can't see that much now. We're just going off when the TV cameras show him and stuff like that, but he's not like what you expect. He's not stood there shouting out, being vocal. I think it's because he knows his place, so to speak. He knows he's assistant manager. He could be, he's one of the most decorated players in English football. And then he's there with Dean Smith. He knows Dean Smith's the gaffer. So he leaves him do it, and he stands there and he gives his 10 pence worth, and he takes in the game. And like you said, he seems to have improved our defence. I think a lot of people kind of think because he's John Terry and he was a great defender, he can just say to our defenders, do this, and then we'll start defending like, vintage 05-06 Chelsea. But you got to remember these players that he's trying to coach aren't John Terry. So, I think we've got a lot of time for him, because of what he's done for us. And as assistant manager, he's been pretty good, to be fair.
Can I just ask you, actually, because obviously talking about defenders, one player who's really stood out for me this year for Villa, probably back end of last season, is Ezri Konsa. I mean, for me, whenever I watch him, I think, he's a player. He can play. I remember seeing him at Brentford and thinking, he can play. But there's been a lot of made about him. I mean, for me, I look at England at the minute and I think Stones has got to be one of the other centre-backs. But I'm kind of looking at him thinking, I can't really see many English centre-backs who are playing better than Konsa in terms of their own form at the minute. Has he been that good, Chris, this season?
Yeah, he's been fantastic, hasn't he, Neil? He's just... I think there's been a couple of games recently where he's, not been his usual self. But in all fairness, as you mentioned it, back end of last season, he seemed to be one of the players that improved with, after Project Restart. But this season, he's been fantastic. Seems to have everything. And he, as well, it's one of those things, that composure at the back. It's almost like the classy defender. He wins the ball and then he takes it out. And it's not like he has to hoof it and get rid of it. Plays it out, and he seems unfazed as well. He's relatively young, young in terms of experience and young, obviously, in age as well. Really, really good player. And he's arguably been our best defender this season. And in all fairness, we've defended pretty well. And the main four have all defended really, really well. And he's arguably been the best of that bunch. To be fair, he's been fantastic. I think a lot of Villa fans have kind of said, should he be considered for England? I think normally you'd kind of say maybe it's a bit premature, but as you've just said, you look at the England defenders and you think, where's the quality? So
I think Mings is getting in there and he's performing better than Mings, then I don't see why not.
Well,
yeah, I think the thing with Mings maybe because he's left-footed.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I mean, Konsa has played better than Mings this season, certainly, hasn't he, Neil? So
yeah,
he deserves something, doesn't he?
Well, being a Villa fan and being Irish, I don't want to play for England at all because I wanted to just play for Villa. So that's keep him there. Don't let him get injured at the Euros. Don't let any of the teams in the continent or even the teams in the perceived top four see how good he is. No, I joke when I say that. Obviously, I want the best for all the Villa players, and I think every Villa fan was banging the drum for Jack Grealish to get in the English team. I'm starting slowly but surely the drum beat for Matty Targett to get in the English team. I think he's been absolutely outstanding there as well, but I think that one is a bit premature, especially for the upcoming Euros, and he does need to prove himself. But Konsa has been fantastic. You look at any kind of advanced statistical analysis of him, just the fact that I think he's not been dribbled past at all this year, and we're coming up on 24, 25 games already.
I think he's been dribbled past twice now, which I suppose either way, only twice. I think one of them was Bernardo Silva against Man City. I think Pepe might have been the other one when we played Arsenal. So, I know Pepe's not been great, but
it's ridiculous the statistical the percentile that he's in, even in the top 5 leagues in Europe, just for his performances at the back. But he's just no nonsense. That's really what it is. Like I found it very difficult to appreciate players like Joe Gomez when he was at Liverpool. I could see he was this slick passer of the ball and really good in movement. But then when you see somebody who's like that's on your team, and Konsa's kind of like him with a small bit more grunt in him. And it's only when you have one of those guys in your team that you're looking at him and you're going, yeah, now I can appreciate why Liverpool fans were very high on the likes of Joe Gomez and why Joe Gomez was getting in the England team. And that's why I would think that the Konsa maybe will be over the next 12, 18 months putting his hand up should his form stay the same way that it is, because it's, he's been very good this year.
Mm. And of course, Grealish. It's still debate. He's only just kind of got himself, last international break, probably his first start, I think it was. And to be fair, he did well. I mean, it's the worry though, in terms of, I think you did kind of touch on it then, Neil. And there's a kind of a little worry for me in terms of certain players in the Euros almost being in that shop window kind of thing. Because we've got all of a sudden, me and Joe were talking about the Euros off air and that lot. I was kind of thinking about it before. I'm thinking, pretty much all the games are going to involve Leeds players there at this rate, kind of thing. You're thinking, if they play well, we're in a bit. But do you fear that at all? Say Grealish had a really good Euros for England, or Konsa did come in. Would that be counterproductive for Villa?
Jack Grealish is a funny one because if I was to put money on it now, I think Jack Grealish is going to get an absolute massive bumper contract at the end of the season from Aston Villa Football Club. I think that, and look, while if you can pay a player that loves your club, if you can pay him and he can stay there and he can see a project and he can see maybe a rainbow, maybe a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow from his trophy point of view, I think Jack Grealish would be happy to win an FA Cup with Aston Villa and finish in the top 4 and in his career. I think he'd be as happy to do that than to go to, I'm going to pick a team like Dortmund and win the Bundesliga and 2 Champions Leagues. There's a certain passion, and you guys will know it because obviously players like Calvin Phillips turning down a move to Aston Villa, for 25, 30 million, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the course of Leeds' existence, there's been a local boy that's been so passionate about the club. It's a regional club, it's deep rooted. I think with Jack Grealish, there's very much like that as well. Now, look, at the end of the day, money talks, but I maybe think that next year probably won't happen. In 3 years' time, if we're still treading water in the Premier League, I think he would go with everybody's blessing at the age of 28, 29. And I think nobody could hold him to ransom, to be honest.
I think a big thing that maybe I don't want to say keeps him at the club, but a big thing that probably puts clubs off is the COVID situation. Clubs aren't going to be flush of cash. All clubs realistically are losing money every week. They're not getting the match day revenue. So, teams aren't going to go, okay, we're going to spend 100+ million on Jack Grealish. Obviously, it'd be worth it, but it's a hell of a lot of money to spend in this current climate. So that's probably something that would, possibly postpone any kind of move.
And that's what it'll cost as well, Chris, because Villa's pockets are deep. Our owners our owner just sold I think it was something like 7% stake in the world's biggest private airplane, and that's pocket change to him, so it's there's deep pockets there as well. So that's what makes me think that if they can figure out the financial fair play, and the longer teams like Leeds and Villa stay in the league, because lest you forget that it's not a case of transfer money is just. It's just what it is. It's not the main kind of fund draw in their funds. It's the wages. But like teams like Bournemouth, teams like Crystal Palace, they could play big wages because they stayed in the Premier League for 3 years. And Christian Purslow, our director of football, has often said it that the benchmark is to stay in the league for the first 2 years. In year 3, you can start to spend more, and then in year 4, you can literally fly your wages kite right up to the top of the sky if you want, because it goes into the stratosphere after that. So I think there's a lot of careful kind of consideration there, and that's why I think Jack might get more money this year and then stay in the league. Then the third year, I think he might even get another contract. It could be a situation where he gets 4 contracts in 4 years, to pay him what he's worth, because the club can afford it.
Do you know when Chris mentioned the COVID situation there, I was like, yeah, more because he's been a bell during COVID situation.
You see me laughing. I was smiling. I thought that's what you were going to say, Chris.
Yeah.
COVID situation when he
Kimmy's a bit of a knob.
he did like the video showing him do like a 10-point turn, hitting a different car with each turn. Trying to, it was like when you play Grand Theft Auto 5 and you're trying to get your car out, and it's a bit of a banger. He was a bit of a bell end during the COVID situation, but he's that good. He can do that. So
no, he can't. No, he can't. I'm joking. No, I know what you mean. I suppose that I think that was one thing that I don't think necessarily would have put people off signing him, but I think potentially could have affected his England career. And I know he's only played 5 times for England or whatever, but it's when you hear Grealish, there was the interview with Peter Crouch, wasn't it, the other week, and he just said he wants to play for England, and it seems like for the last couple of seasons, it seems like that's what he wants to do. He wants to play for England, and if you support Aston Villa, you're playing in the Premier League for Aston Villa, you captain them. Yeah, it was. You captain them, and you play for England, then you kind of almost ticking all the boxes. I suppose the pinnacle of club football, for pretty much anyone is going to be Champions League, and he could go and play for a Champions League club. But these days, probably aside from Man City, which of those clubs that are the top 4, these days are going to guarantee playing in the top 4. He could go to United and they could have a shite season and finish 5th. It's kind of, I suppose if he knuckles down, make sure he's going to play every week, because you look at Man City. If he went to Man City, he might not play every week, because not all their players do play every week. The big guys, Sterling has a couple of weeks out and then he comes back in. Jesus comes in and out and stuff like that. So I think because he can play week in, week out, he wants to concentrate on playing for England, and that'll help him.
as long as he doesn't act like a bell and go out drink driving and stuff. So
yeah. No, it's fair. It's fair. We're getting a lot of hate in the comments because
I
very Leeds focused. But let me just say, this is an opposition preview. I have to say this every week, guys. The whole purpose of this video is for opposition fans to come on and us get a better understanding of them. There's no point talking about Leeds, otherwise they might not as well be here. Do you know what I mean?
Joe, there was a bit of controversy. Was it opposition that was on the post today? There was a bit of controversy over that.
I was getting dug out, weren't I, for my punctuation and grammar. Yeah, I'm not into all that. School wasn't my forte, unfortunately. But obviously, guys, there's a massive miss, Grealish and Cash. Huge misses. Something that me as a Leeds fan, I'm licking my lips. You know, I'm thinking, right, okay, especially El Hamadi at right back. Obviously, Grealish can make something happen out of nothing. We've seen it in that first game, you know, although he didn't score, you were very close to. But at the same time, we're without KP and Rodrigo, which are massive losses for us. Also, Click as well. Click went off injured, and Bielsa said there's a chance, so it's a bit touch and go. So, I mean, Oscar, KP, I was hoping KP and Rodrigo will be back for this game. They'd be huge in this game. But obviously, what do we expect from a Leeds United perspective, do you think, in terms of lineup?
You're looking at midfield. You know, you're looking at potentially KP, Click, Rodrigo out, which, to be fair, start the season, before we even consider Stuart Dallas as a central midfielder, that's probably our strongest midfield for me on paper. So you look at it all of a sudden and thinking, that is really going to be depleted now in terms of the midfield we put out. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one what we go with. I think the good thing is for us, from our point of view, is obviously Villa got the injuries themselves. Because if we were playing with with Grealish on the pitch and no KP there, big battle for us, big challenge for us. I know obviously the last time we played them, we beat them, etc., without Phillips on the pitch, but slightly different circumstances. We tried something a little bit different that day. But yeah, it's going to be tough. It is going to be tough. But I still want to feel positive because the front three for me, in terms of, I still think Rafinha on that left-hand side against Al Mohammadi is such a clear mismatch for me in terms of this kind of game. I think obviously Harrison, to be fair,
I think there's a possibility Costa comes in, mate, and plays on the right.
Could be Costa quite easily, to be fair. And to be fair, Costa played last time at Villa Park, I think, started the game.
Yeah,
so
he certainly did.
Whatever we go with, it's not going to be Leeds at their strongest. There's no doubt about that. It's going to be a weakened team in some kind of way. But yeah, I still think. I think if we were playing Villa kind of a month ago, I'd be really, really panicking going into this, thinking, my word, Villa are on such a roll at this moment in time. I just think Villa at the moment, a bit like us. And let's not forget, I think Villa and Leeds, because of the way they start the season, are held up to these such high standards by the rest of kind of the media, really, for me, because of the name more than anything, because it's Leeds and Aston Villa. Aston Villa won the European Cup, Leeds have won Division 1 titles and the European Cup as well themselves, etc., etc. Let me have it. Let me have that. Don't disrupt me on that. Let me have it. Because we did win it. Anyway, that's another matter, that, isn't it, really? But you look at it, we just held to these like such ridiculous standards in that kind of sense. But really, you got to look at it and say Bielsa and Dean Smith, based on this season, are among the best managers in the league in terms of the jobs they've done. You have to throw Moyes in there as well. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Pep and that lot. But for me, that it would be some of the top managers. Would be that. So I just think we're held to these ridiculous standards that, we're going to be inconsistent from time to time. And I just know on Saturday, you're going to get an unbelievable game. And look, I've seen a couple of comments about him. So I think probably now's the time. We're 45 minutes in. We've not mentioned Mr. Agbonlahor of TalkSport fame. While we talk about media and people.
He's not helped. He's not helped the rivalry because
he's got. I mean, what's your take? To be fair, I mean, on Gabby Agbonlahor, for me, if one of my former players was winding Leeds up the whole week before that game in the 3-0 game, and then you lost the game, I'd be absolutely raging with the former club legend. I mean, what's your take on that, Chris?
I mean, to be fair, I think a lot of people were kind of pissed off with him, saying, "Bloody hell, Gabby, this is your fault." and all that kind of stuff, because he almost like he set us up to fail, didn't he? All this, Bielsa, all this kind of stuff and whatever.
Get the red carpet out for Dean Smith, he said, and then he got spanked 3-0.
Yeah,
I just find it funny, to be honest. I don't even get annoyed. I just find it funny.
Like, do you know? I think kind of Gabby gets away with it slightly because he's that kind of character. So it's not like it's kind of what we, I don't know, expect of him, which sounds stupid. And I suppose he hasn't played for us for a while. His last few years at the club didn't really do anything. So it's kind of like it's not like it's out of character, but at the same time, it's a lot of fans on social media, Villa fans, have got caught up with it, in it themselves, like Leeds, Bielsa, all this kind of stuff and whatever. But then it was a bit like at that time when he was going on and on and on at Leeds and Bielsa, and then we ended up getting battered. And you think, oh, for fuck's sake, it's kind of like it's one of them. It's I love Gabby. I always will love him. He was, you go back to our last, kind of successful period, so to speak, where we were battling top 6 in the Premier League, which was 11 years ago now. And he is Villa's all-time Premier League top goal scorer. So he is, all Villa fans love him, but he has got that side where he is a bit of a knob, and he has kind of got involved with this rivalry. I don't necessarily mind it, but at the same time, I don't want him to get kind of carried away, and then because it's like people get involved, and then it's kind of, oh god, yeah, because it's not like Villa and West Brom, where West Brom are struggling right at the bottom. Leeds are right up our arses, and Leeds are, could well finish, above us, and do the double over us and all this kind of stuff. And I know it doesn't really matter, but you can't really be having a pop at a team that's not having a bad season. Fair enough if you're having a pop at a team that's right at the bottom, and you're like, oh yeah, blah blah blah. But you're having a pop at a team we've got a little bit of a rivalry with, and you're kind of stoking the fire, and they're actually doing quite well. So it's kind of like, oh, it's almost like counterproductive. You're like, well, this is just going to come back and bite us on the arse, isn't it? If Leeds do the double over us and finish above us. So it's fine to an extent. It's kind of got to the point now when I'm thinking, what's the point in it? Keep going on at Leeds. Why don't we have a pop at West Brom, who are down there and staring the Championship in the face, or Wolves who aren't doing great, but. I just think the Leeds thing, it's maybe got a bit too much. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how we get on at the weekend. Might change things.
This whole thing has been too nice. I'm going to defend Gabby because just why not? I know, I'm only joking. Look,
I was getting ready there thinking, this is it. Come on.
Let's get the knife in. No, I think, look, my view on it is that Gabby Agbonlahor is a club legend. There's another guy who grew up supporting Aston Villa, and he's... went down his top goal scorer, as Chris said. But I think what happened with Gabby is that Gabby got caught up in having a bit of a war of words with the likes of Noel Whelan, Danny Mills. Boys were small, a bit more cute about the whole thing. They knew when to shut up. And then Gabby was just Gabby was like that as a player. He was like that in the dressing room, and he'll be the first to admit he won't change for anyone. He's a messer. He's a joker. He's a shit stirrer. And look, he was probably new to Twitter and new to being in the media game and stuff like that, and he was getting phone calls left, right, and center. So from the personal point of view, you can from Gabby Agbonlahor, he's saying, "Listen, I know I'm only joking. I'm stoking up. This is great. People are ringing me, going, hey, that thing you said about Bielsa being a myth. Do you want to come on and talk to us? Here's a few quid." So. I suppose everybody's got to build their brand some way, and I think Gabby's gone off social media and stuff like that just in protest.
If you win at the weekend and win well, he'll make an appearance somewhere.
He's more than welcome to come on for the Love podcast and absolutely go 90 to the gallon if he needs to. There's no problem there.
You know he will, man. You know he will. But like you said, I get it, man. It's like Talk Sport. All they need to do, and I bet you'll get
That's
it as
the problem.
Well.
Talk Sport is the problem.
Yeah, they put something in the Leeds in the title. They'll probably do it with Villa as well. And they're such big clubs, such big fan bases, and so vitriolic about their club on Twitter, like we've seen. And I think that's why there's been a little bit of a clash, because we're both like, Talk Sport put anything out. I mean, there was something earlier. Even I got embroiled in it because what's his face? Alan Brazil had said Bielsa should be the next Celtic manager. But when you actually click on it, it's him saying he would like that. But he was only saying after we'd been beaten by Arsenal that Leeds had been found out and were no good. And it was like, now you want us to manage your club. Like, it's just all about clickbait stuff. It's BS, isn't it? But you were talking there about, obviously, where you're at in the league. You've got 2 games in hand. I mean, we joke on here and say, look, Europe's still a possibility for us. Why not? You know, Sheffield United were close. Wolves were close in there. Well, look, Wolves did get in their first season. So me and Oscar, jokingly, me probably more realistic in my head, think, yeah, there is still a chance. But you guys have a real chance of Europe, surely. What do you think you've got a chance, Chris? You're saying no?
Nah, there's no chance. I know we've got. It's one of those things. It's almost like we've got 2 games in hand, but I mean, in theory, those 2 games in hand are against Everton and Spurs. So okay, they've both been up and down this season. Spurs are a bit of a mess. But it's almost like a lot of people look at the 2 games in hand and think, right, there's 6 points. We'll add that to our total. We could be 6th. But at the same time, well, you know, we could easily lose those 2 games. So let's just take 0, add that to it, add on 2 games, and then that's where we're at. I think 2021 we've been pretty poor in all fairness. You know, at the same time, we haven't kind of, you know, it's not like we've been poor and lost all our games. I think we've had 3 wins this year. We've just been poor, and it's kind of one of them that how long can you sustain playing poorly for and getting results? Obviously, we haven't, you know, last game, obviously, we lost. I just think sometimes, you know, you take Jack Grealish out of the equation. I know we're not a one-man team, but we're not far off being a one-man team. He is that good. You know, you go to a lot any club in the world and you take out their main player, you know, big player, it makes a difference. I just think you know, we've kind of shown we've certainly improved on last season, which is the main thing. And then we're not going to get relegated, which I think a lot of people coming into this season were probably worried about. But then at the same time, there's that frustration in that we've been top 10 all season pretty much. I think we've dropped out of the top 10 for 1 game week, and that's because we didn't play in that game week. But there's also, we've shown a bit of naivety against, you know, certain teams where you look at it and you think, you know, we should maybe get something from, you know, I suppose we showed it against Leeds in, you know, the first game. It was 0-0 and we ended up getting battered 3-0. And not saying Leeds didn't deserve that, but it's just that in-game management sometimes a bit lacking. And I think it's a bit too much for us to think that we could make Europe. I think Leeds have probably got more of a chance of making Europe than we have.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So, you know,
mind games from Chris here.
I mean, Chris giving mind games to me. I don't play on the weekend, mate, so it's irrelevant. I have no impact. But sure, do you really think Leeds have a realistic proposition than Villa?
I just think you watch. I know Leeds kind of the way they're playing. It's like literally, you know, you live by the sword, die by the sword. In terms of that, I think they're up there in terms of top scorers in the league, but they're also down there in terms of most goals conceded. But you know, if you look, Leeds on their day realistically could beat anybody. You know, they've shown it this season. You know, Rafinha at the moment is, you know, he's playing really well. His form's really good. Patrick Bamford, I think only Salah and Kane have scored more league goals than him. You know, he puts himself in good. I suppose defensively, you know, the kind of probably a bit of a combination of the players and the setup let you down slightly. It's probably your weakest area. Centrally, probably, you know, Luke Ayling's a really good fullback. You know, Alioski or Dallas, whoever has played left back, has done quite well. But I can just see them, you know, beating teams. You know, I think the fundamental. Obviously, Leeds have got good players, but the fundamental part about Leeds is the way they play, the way Bielsa sets them up, and the way they play. And with that, they can go and take a game to anybody. And I just think that even though we've massively improved from last season to this season, which last season we were pretty bad, and we've massively improved, but I think if you take Jack Grealish out of the equation, our game changes massively. Whereas I suppose you look at Leeds and you look at Calvin Phillips, who's a very big player for you. You take him out of the equation, Leeds still play in the same way, and you know it still works. And I just think they can take any team to the sword and get the wins. And I think they probably do have a better chance than us to get to Europe. And Neil's probably sat there thinking, is he talking about? But it's just going off what I've seen. I know 2021 we've not been great, but then you take everything into equation. We had it was nine players and 5 staff members that had COVID. We had Bodymore Heath training ground closed for however many weeks. I think it was 2 weeks. We went 3 weeks without playing. The likes of Ross Barkley hadn't trained for how long, and then most of the time now Ross Barkley looks like he looks like he's
dropped off, hasn't he?
Yeah, he looks like he's someone who's won a competition to play for Villa, and he's just literally you haven't got a clue. You couldn't look at that team and say, there you go, that's the guy who's played 30 odd times for England and played for Chelsea in the Champions League and all this kind of stuff. It's just, we've dropped off quite a bit. And okay, I suppose you can look at it and say, well, we've dropped off and we're still 8th. But at the same time, I think I can see the worrying trends are dropping back in that affected us massively last season. So that's the way I see it at the moment, to be fair.
What do you make to that, Neil, and of Ross Barkley? I brought Ross Barkley down because I remember Oscar, before we played you, I remember you made a comment about the midfield 3 and how good they were. Oscar, I think, is it Douglas, McGinn and Barkley at the time were absolutely exceptional. But he's just fallen off a cliff, has he, Neil? What's the story?
Yeah, the thing with Barkley is Barkley was, like everybody was saying, if Chelsea want 30 million for him, just pay it now and get him in full time in January. He got injured against Brighton, came off after like 4 minutes, did his hamstring, was out for like 7. I think it was 8 or 9 games. We had a lot of games in a short space of time. He was out for about 9 games, and he's kind of come back, and he looks like he's made of wood. He's just not anyway fluid. Beforehand, he was making these great runs into the box. I know he scored against Southampton actually with a nice run to get his head on the ball and an uncharacteristic header, I suppose, for Ross Barkley. But he's been very trundly and trudgy, around the field. So I think I wouldn't rule out that he's going to play at the weekend. There's been a bit of a backlash from Villa fans saying, listen, there's no way he can play because he just doesn't get back. He doesn't defend. Against Leicester at the weekend, Villa played 4-3-3 or 4-1-4-1 if you want to call it that, but realistically it's 4-3-3. And Barkley was back in the centre a small bit more. He was a bit more withdrawn. For the most part of this season, Barkley has almost played right up top alongside Watkins. So it's a bit of a fallacy to say that we don't play 2 strikers because Barkley's been up there beside him the whole time. His job isn't to put in a lung busting run and tackle a fella from behind and win the ball like Romeo did for Southampton. That's not Barkley's game. Sometimes as Villa fans we're a bit guilty of thinking maybe he might do it today. But even saying that, when he's been up top and when he's been up playing at the top of that midfield 3, he still has been a bit underwhelming since in 2021. 2020, back end of 2020, fantastic. Seems to be a different guy. So he may start at the weekend. He may not start. Dean Smith might put in legs in there and Jacob Ramsey or Morgan Sanson. But Ross Barkley has definitely been he's definitely been an enigma anyway. The last 7-8 games, little training time. Much of his time in the field has come due to matches because of COVID and because of we had a lot of games in short succession. So I don't really know what to make of him in 2021. And at the moment, if you're asking me, do I write a check for him? I'm probably saying no for the money that Chelsea want for him. And just on the point in Europe, it's anyone's game. It's anybody's game because the fact that the Europa Conference could potentially go down to 8th position. That's ridiculous. The amount of European competition. It's going to become a situation where you're going to have to go define realistic European competition because now they've brought back in the Cup Winners' Cup. For people of my vintage, the Cup Winners' Cup used to be there back in the day, back in the mid-90s. And now they've realistically just brought it in again with the Europa Conference. So, you could get into Europe in 8th position. So, and I think both teams have as good a chance as each other. And look, if either team gets into Europe, I think they'll reap the benefits of it being able to attract players and, those nights, those Wednesday nights or Thursday nights or Tuesday nights, whatever nights they're going to play the play in, fans will remember those. They do. We still talk about that trip to Hamburg and the trip to Moscow in 2007 when Martin O'Neill got us there. So, And I'm sure you guys probably still talk about the Champions League semi-final. So no matter what level of European competition, it's going to be good for the fans. And I think both teams could potentially get in there, this year, or they could have a good rattle off it anyway.
Definitely, and this is where I come, like, my head's at. Like, I see it all the time. Like, fans say, we're not ready. It's too soon. It won't do us any good, etc. We haven't got a big enough squad. And that's fine. I get it. But at the same time, in my head, as a fan, when I speak with my emotion, I don't care. Get me into Europe as soon as possible. I don't need to worry about next season, the season after, and we might not, contingency plans, all that stuff. Get me in Europe. We can attract a better, we've seen it with Wolves. Wolves went in Europe, had a massive drop off, but they're still attracting big name players. You know what I mean? Because they have that kudos behind them, and Europe brings money, and I want European football back at Ellen Road. I want to go on a European tour. I don't care. I don't buy into this, or it's a fat plan and all this sort of stuff. You can't tell me that an owner or a manager so you've got 3 games left. They're not saying we're best off not winning these because, we're not ready. This is never going to happen, So surely, I mean, Oscar, where's your head at? Because I see it all the time in the comments, it's too early, Joe. Because I say it tongue-in-cheek. Every time we win, I'm like, right, tune up the band. We're making European football again. Get the tunes playing. And people come in with that. But then I do get a lot of like, no, we're too early. No, don't do it. But I don't care, man. Look, we were relegated to League One like that. Do you know what I mean? Do you know, like that? So I don't get all this, you live for the moment. Give me European football this season if we can make it. And like Neil said, I didn't know about this Europe conference thing. I heard it earlier as well, and I was unsure what they were talking about. But if you're telling me 8th, if that's a realistic possibility, wow, that's even more doable, Oscar. I'm like, yo, we're there. Do you know what I mean?
No, yeah. I mean, I don't get this talk about I don't want to finish in the European places this season. I don't get that from me, because you've got to look at our situation right now. Yes, obviously we want to build a long-term plan. We want to bring in, when the sad day does come, when Bielsa does leave, we want to have a succession plan and carry on building, same style of football across the whole team, and just build in that way. But for me, when I look at it right now is the high point for me, or we're approaching that peak for me at the minute. You've got to take European football, you can get it. We don't know there's no guarantee that Marcelo Bielsa will still be at Leeds United in a year's time. There's no guarantee about that. This is Marcelo Bielsa we're talking about. You've got to take the good moments when you can get them. I know there's all this talk about it's an extra 14 games if you make it to the final. You've got to make it to the final first. It's not that big a test, for me in terms of the squad depth. We would sign players. We've got the money to sign players. We've got the attraction to sign players if we got into Europe. So we don't have any fear about that. Absolutely, 100%. If we go for it.
Exactly, like what you guys are saying is 100% right. Because unless a club, how am I going to put this? Like, how are teams ever going to break into that top 4? How are they ever going to break the monopoly? How are they ever going to break into that upper echelon of clubs, even within the Premier League, if you don't have a baby step somewhere? And if you're afraid to even take the baby step, and to be honest with you, getting in the Europa League or the Europa Conference is small potatoes in comparison to where it could catapult you. Like, neither of these two clubs are going to do a Leicester this year. We can't. I think we mathematically can't win the league now.
We still believe.
Yeah. But like, Leicester are one-off. Like, Leicester are an absolute fairy tale story. Gotta take baby steps. Like, do you want to go straight into the Champions League and rehaul your team, and then all of a sudden have 11 new faces like we did when we came up from the Championship last year? Doesn't work like that. You build through the years, get into the Europa League, see if it, get used to playing on a Thursday and on a Sunday. There's little bits and pieces like that. So as I say, it's for me, I can never get my head around getting into Europe is too early for us either, because it may never be too early for you to get into Europe, because you may never get there again. Could turn into Sunderland.
Yeah, exactly. And let's be honest, right, Neil, and I'm not like, this isn't a dig or anything like that, but say if you've got Villa fans that may be saying it as well, I'm assuming you might have.
Oh, we do, yeah. We do.
You could have got relegated last season on the case of a technicality, and this season you could be getting Europe. I know that's the facts, though, isn't it? And then people go, "Oh, we're not ready." Listen, we could have been relegated. We might be on the cusp of Europe. I don't buy into it. For me, it's all about the moment. It's all about the here and now. We look at Liverpool. Look at Liverpool are a perfect example. They have had multiple injuries, which has caused an absolute crash, and they might be hanging on to the coattails for top 4, right? Maybe even Europe. I mean, they should be all right. But a club like Leeds, a club like Villa that don't have what they have in terms of quality players, if we had a similar situation next season, like all our centre-backs went and all these key personnel, we could be in a similar sort of position. You don't know what's around the corner. So live for the moment, man. It's all about the here and now for me. And if we get into 8th and that happens, then I'm all for it, man. Definitely.
Tomorrow night waits for no one. You've seen what's happened in the last year or so. You just got to live in the moment. You don't know what's going to happen around the corner. Bielsa might decide in a year's time he doesn't want to manage Leeds anymore. Who knows? Anything could happen. We could lose Rafinha to Liverpool. We could lose Robin Koch to Arsenal. All sorts of things could happen. We've got to live in the moment for me. And
it's the same as Sheffield United, isn't it? You look at them last season, people will question, are they going to make top 4, top 6? And then look at them now. I know they've improved slightly, but they could literally go down with a whimper, almost like a record points, lowest total. And last season they were brilliant. So, it's a couple of things change.
And Chris, you've made a huge point. And they lost out on Europe, right? Due to the COVID break, probably, you would say. It halted them, right? Let's say, for example, they got in Europe. They'd have got more money, being able to spend more. And you could arguably say they might not be in the position they're in now because they'd have had more funds to call upon. Do you know what I mean? Some might disagree and say, well, no, they'd have had to play more games, but surely they'd have had more money to throw about, So
they've spent a fair bit, to be honest. So getting into Europe, they probably would have spent a bit more. Whether they'd have wasted it like they've done now, but it's a great point because they could have just spent a bucket load and they could be doing quite well. So it makes a massive difference because it's likely that they'll go down this season.
Yep.
Just slightly off topic, and there's something, to be fair, just looking at Chris's yellow shirt there in the background. I remember that Villa shirt, to be fair, because I always thought for probably 2 years, right? I was young at the time. I always thought that said cows on it rather than CTWS. I always thought that said cows on it. I don't know why, but it still looks like cows now, to be fair. It should be cows instead.
We still refer to it as the Hummel Cows jersey, yeah.
Yeah, the cow, yeah. So I knew you were going to say that when you were talking about it. It's like, cows. Remember it.
All cows, aren't we? Right. So, I mean, looking ahead to it then, obviously the obvious one, looking at it from a Leeds point of view, if you're looking at this as Villa fans, other than Rafinha, who's the other player that you're looking at and thinking they could cause us some serious damage on Saturday?
Well, Patrick Bamford will have his Cristiano Ronaldo moment, won't he? And he'll be able to toe punt it from anywhere.
You're having them all season, mate. He is Cristiano Ronaldo.
Cristiano Bamford. Yeah, I don't know. I think Harrison, I like Harrison. I think he's a good player. Really, really good player. I mean, you touched on it earlier with your wingers. Costa has his moments as well, doesn't he? He seems to, he's full of running. Has the odd game where he's really, really good. Rafinha is the one. He's fantastic. He's kind of unplayable at the moment, isn't he? Really. Probably, I don't know, Harrison or Bamford. Probably one of those pair. I don't know.
Stuart Dallas is your secret weapon. Stuart Dallas is your secret weapon. Like just out of nowhere, he'll just wrap his left foot around something and he'll go 90 into the back. He's there you go. I see a comment on the screen. Dallas is going to be a big threat. Genuinely, he's a guy making the most of his talent. And that's not a slag at him. That's not me demeaning him or anything like that. Like, I love to see that. A guy that's literally making hay while the sun shines. And he's definitely there. I'm a fan of Tyler Roberts. I've got a lead supporting mate, and he's a bit on the fence about Tyler Roberts. I know I see Chris's face over. That's going back to 2018, but 2019. But I think he just doesn't like athletically. He's there. Maybe he doesn't have that end product yet, but I think he's young enough. So like there might be something coming of him. He's a big he's a big strong lad, and he can run around. But Stuart Dallas for me is the guy that I'm kind of hoping doesn't have his shooting boots on, because he just has a howitzer of a left foot.
Now, you mentioned him earlier as well. Whether he'll play, Shackleton is a player that I rate. He kind of, I suppose, goes under the radar a bit, doesn't he? Does a lot of the hard work for Leeds. You know, I suppose more defensively than attacking. But he's a bit of an engine. He's a good player. There's a few. I mean, I don't know what you guys would say for Villa with no Grealish. I don't know who else is there.
Yeah, you're a one-man team, Chris. What can I say?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you're just up for that one, Chris.
Do you know? Well, Ollie Watkins is a great player. Traore, the I don't think, I know you mentioned earlier, Chris, he didn't start in that first game. He came on as a sub, I remember. If I remember rightly, I don't think he started. I think it could have been
El Ghazi, he might have played.
El Ghazi and Trezeguet, I think, both played in that game. I think. And then Trezeguet. And then but the Traore came on, but he's looked decent. But I just think, for me personally, I think our form against Villa's been very good in the last 5-6 games we've played. I don't think we've lost. I know people will say don't jinx it, but I don't believe in that shit. You know, I get it all the time. There's nothing that I can do sat here in my little room mouthing out can have any effect whatsoever on a game of football.
Well, I heard that Solskjaer before that Fiji game had basically played our pre-match video in the dressing room.
No. Well, it's funny you should say that, right? I remember when we played Bristol City in the Championship, the game, the season after Villa had gone up, the first one where we won 3-1, absolutely spanked them. I remember doing a preview, and an actual Bristol City fan put it on social media and tagged in the club and said, play this to the players. And I was like, really? I don't think they're not asked about what some guy was saying in his garage. Like, it was pretty funny. But yeah, look, back to Villa. Our record's really good recently. The loss of Matty Cash is huge. I really, really rate him. El Mohammadi is in retirement home, I think, for me. And if Rafinha plays on that left, this may come back to bite me, but again, it is what it is. We've seen what Rafinha did to Gary Cahill not too long ago. I think he could have El Mohammadi on absolute toast. He won't know whether he's coming or going. I think the loss of Grealish is absolutely huge. The way Chris was talking about the drop-off in form, etc., I'm expecting another positive result. I think, yes, we're not at our best. We're missing Rodrigo. We're missing KP. We've got Llorente. He got through 90 minutes. Whether that means he might go in the DM, I'm not sure. Like Neil says, Dallas can play absolutely anywhere. So you might find that Alioski comes in at left back and he puts Dallas there. I think Pascal and Cooper, I mean, they've been in great form. So, again, they should hopefully nullify Watkins. I think it's very much Leeds' game to lose, if I'm being totally honest. I'm really confident. And that normally just come back to bite me, but I can only say what I feel. And, I just think the loss of Grealish and Cash is huge for Villa. Absolutely huge.
I've it down as Villa are going to come and are going to play a wall across midfield. And I think that it will be very much so. I mentioned 4-3-3. I mentioned 4-1-4-1 previously. I think it's going to be 4, maybe even 4-5-1. And Watkins is going to plough a lonely furrow up front. Obviously with people breaking. I think we could see Trezeguet on the right to help out with El Mohammadi. I think Trezeguet is very good at tracking back. He's a very diligent player. He's not a player you bring in to change a game. He did pop up with some very, very, very important goals last year, but he's not a change of pace guy. You know, he's very diligent there. He defends well, he tracks back, and he gets up and down the wing as well. I think we might see something strange, like we might see a midfield of Nakamba, Douglas Luiz, We might see John McGinn, and then we might see someone like Morgan Sanson out in the left, not predominantly known as a left winger or anything like that, but I think it might be just to make that midfield as cluttered as possible. So that we kind of more or less learn from our mistakes, that Sanson doesn't actually play there. He kind of plays in a diagonal format, almost like a Jack Grealish, starting off on the left, but realistically ending up somewhere in and around the middle of the field to cover out where Barkley would be and give maybe Matty Targett opportunity to bomb on, because he's literally had free reign up and down that left wing with Grealish in front of him as well when Villa have played. So there's probably, I don't know if there's any Villa fans looking at this, but they're probably going, Dean Smith's going to play the same 11 he always plays, and just stop hoping against all hope. But I think this is the game to try something out, maybe even bring in a Jacob Ramsey. But Leeds are going to be very formidable, as I say. You guys just have a really good system. Villa have a good system as well when we've got Grealish in there. But look, this is the acid test. Can we play without Grealish? No one knows. No one knows. Chris, 1-1 is what I'm going for.
1-1. Well, funny you should say that. We've not had a draw.
It's like 12 games.
Yeah, it's something like that for a very, very long time. Like Bielsa doesn't do draws. We either lose spectacularly or we win really well. Do you know what I mean? There might be the odd anomaly, but I don't think it'll be a draw. I don't know though. I think that's Neil trying to appease the Villa fans.
I said it in our own podcast. I think it'll be 1-1 draw. Yeah. My co-host said it was something like 2-2 or 3-3 draw, and I was there. 3-3 draws just don't happen in the Premier League that often, So, like, if you're hoping for that, then you're going to be a bit misguided on it. But I think it could be a draw.
What about you, Chris? Lineup wise, do you
know? I think Neil's bang on in terms of it's almost like what Dean Smith should do, because, like I said about 2021, we haven't been great. There's a couple of players who've performed well that probably haven't had as many starts as they should have had. Ramsey, Nakamba, Sanson as well. Barkley's. I mean, you could argue that all three of our centre midfielders. You mentioned earlier, Joe, Barkley, Louise McGinn. You could argue that all three of them are pretty. That they've all been out of sorts at the moment. Neither of them are kind of top of their game. So our midfield is we seem to be struggling there a bit. So I'm hoping Dean Smith notices that, kind of takes note and makes some changes. I just get an impression that he'll kind of go with the same team that he always does. El Mohammadi will come in. I think Trezeguet probably will start. But then again, Traore is one of our better attacking players. He's likely to come up with a goal. Obviously, no Grealish. I don't think there's going to be many changes from us. But yeah, it's a game I've been every week. Gabby pipes up on social media about stuff, and I kind of get worried about the impending death that is Leeds United against Villa at Ellen Road. So it's not one that I'm looking forward to, in all fairness.
The pitch, by the way, is atrocious. So you keep your eyes out on that, guys. I don't know if you've seen a lot of Leeds games.
Yeah, seen it.
Our pitch
I
is
like
awful.
I like throwbacks to the mid-90s, when stands were being built, there's hoardings up behind the goals, and the pitch was in absolute ribbons. Yeah, bring it back. We know that we don't have Jack Grealish that suits us down to the ground. So, yeah, tear it up.
Go on, Oscar.
I'll be honest, I'm not sure on this one, I think without Phillips, Click, Rodrigo, I look at that midfield a little bit and think...
I mean, Click might make it, yeah. We don't know.
But what version of Click will we see if he's going to rush in? That's my fear. And that's the thing. I look at it, logically, I think in both boxes, I think we're quite well placed to deal with Villa. I just worry in terms of how we're going to set up kind of thing. I'm just thinking if Alioski's at left back, Traore or Trezeguet on the right wing, again, I can see mismatches on both sides of the pitch. So I can honestly see it being quite tight, to be honest. I can see it both being quite a tight game. I'm going to go 2-1 Leeds, but I don't think it'll be as straightforward as the Villa Park game, just purely because of the injuries we've got. I know obviously they've got Grealish out, but arguably you could say Phillips, Click, Rodrigo. That's as big a blow really in terms of
two
how
internationals
we play.
Two or three internationals. There's Click is Polish international. So
Yeah,
you know, like that's a pretty big piece. And Rodrigo, obviously, record signing. Calvin Phillips, you know, a name on you might even say a name in the team sheet for England under Gareth Southgate, but it's all about the system, guys, with Bielsa, and that's not being nasty about it or anything, but it really is. You know, he's got players that fit into that system just beautifully, and that's what it is. That's the Stuart Dallas of this world, who actually probably played under Dean Smith, I'd say, at Brentford. So I'm crediting Dean Smith with bringing out the best of Stuart Dallas, because he was playing with the likes of I think Crusaders in Northern Ireland and something like Croke United, I think is what they were called. He had some really Irish sounding name teams before he actually moved to England. So yeah, he's got his big break.
He's been coined the Cookstown Cafu. That's what he gets called. The Cookstown Cafu.
But I could pint in Cookstown before. A nice spot.
Yeah. BT actually think he's Leeds born. That's how poor their commentary's been. They called him Leeds born Stuart Dallas, so we've changed him. Yeah. So, I mean, the commentary's woeful.
Not once, 5 times. 5 times I looked at it.
In a different game as well, so it was picked up on, and then the following game then said Leeds born Stuart Dallas, and it's like, how are they getting paid to do this? I don't know, but there you go.
Well, sometimes when they come up with stuff, you just think, what the hell are they? You know, they don't research. It's almost like it's some of the it's like the ex-professionals. I think some of them, it's almost like because they've played football, there's the expectancy that they know it. So I think maybe they just turn up. And there's no research, and they say this kind of stuff, and you're thinking, what the hell's going on? Yeah, you know, they get that wrong a lot with nationalities and who they've played for and stuff. You think, Jesus Christ, no.
Yeah, it's woeful, isn't it? It's woeful. 2-0 for me. 2-0 Oscar. 2-0 Leeds. Yeah,
I love another clean sheet.
Another clean sheet. Yeah.
I look at Villa though. I still think there's a fair bit of firepower there. Fair bit of firepower. Obviously, I know Barkley maybe he's not on it, might not start, but Watkins, Trezeguet. It could still cause us problems. But for me, I still back that Rafinha against Al Mohammadi on top of everything. I still think that's the biggest difference between the two teams for me. But it could easily go the other way. I think it's another game where I think, to be fair, Neil's alluded to this. The first goal will be what decides it for me. We don't often draw games because when we go 1 down, we lose. When we go 1 up, we tend to win. And that sounds very Michael Owen-like, that kind of comment, but it just does tend to be, we either go on to get battered or we go on to batter another team. We very rarely win 1-0, to be fair. Yeah. We very rarely win games 1-0. So I'm here saying 2-1. I might be totally wrong, but I can honestly see it being a really good game. I just hope the pitch doesn't ruin the first sort of 30, 40 minutes like it did a bit against Southampton, and then we kind of scored, and then it was the best game of football ever, to be fair, the last second half. So I'm just
opposites when you're winning.
Yeah, exactly.
If you don't score, you hardly ever win.
That's true. That's true.
Michael Owen, classic.
You don't shoot, you don't score.
Brilliant.
The best ever was when I can't remember. I think it was Liverpool were 3-0 down at half time, and they asked Michael Owen what his prediction would be, and he said, "I still back Liverpool to get back into this 2-2." The third goal had gone in, I think. It was something like 45th plus 5th minute of stoppage time to go 3 up. I think it's Stoke or something like that they were playing, and he said 2-2. It's something. It's mad. It's mad. But we don't get that, to be fair. Just a quick plug here. If you watch all these TV's live watch-alongs, you get well-researched, non-biased commentary. So, hint to the hint.
That's why I don't do any watch-alongs, because well-researched commentary, you mad. No, hyperbole and absolute bullshit. That's what I deal in.
Brilliant.
But guys, I guess we'll leave it there, I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely top class. Neil, tell us a bit more about your podcast there, mate, For the Love of Paul McGrath. Tell us a bit more about that, mate.
Well, obviously named after the greatest defender ever to lace up a pair of boots, Paul McGrath. Obviously, the man that made me start following football. But yeah, we can find us anywhere. Myself and Paddy, we started off doing 1 episode a week, and some weeks we've got 5 or 6. Just anytime anything just comes to the mind, we like to get out for a natter and get talking. But you find us anywhere, any podcast provider. You'll find us there. And we're also on www.fortheloveofpalmcgrath.com as well. So thanks a million, lads, for having us on. I really appreciate it. It's been a great chat.
Yeah, no, it was a pleasure, mate. Honestly, really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Because we've had a bit of chew in the past trying to get older Villa fans. And I don't know whether or not it's because there's that little bit there. I never got some responses last time. So thank you so much for agreeing to come on, Neil, mate. Great.
Not at all.
And Chris, tell us a bit more about obviously Rivalry Aside TV.
Yeah, I've just joined the boys Rivalry Aside last week. Luke and Ben headed up there doing some great stuff. So I've just doing some Villa content with them. Obviously follow those guys on Twitter at Rivalry Aside. Get involved, watch their stuff. Really interesting. But yeah, obviously next season, get me and Neil back on, and we can obviously all talk about European football for both sides, can't we? In the UEFA
Europa League semi-final clash.
Conference.
You're for conference semi-final cash.
Yeah,
baby steps.
Yeah.
No, Europa League. Don't forget about next year. Forget about 2 years' time.
I've just fallen victim of what I told everybody.
Now.
Do you know what? We should just break away and set up European Super League. It seems to be like the fashionable thing to do when you don't get your way. So why don't we?
How good is that as well? The best thing is that we're squeezed in between Tottenham and Arsenal, and it's just absolutely brilliant, man. These are the sort of teams that wanted this league, and they're down there with us, small time clubs. Brilliant. But no, check out Rivalry Aside TV. I've been on before. The great bunch of lads. They do like Premier League predictor on a weekend and stuff. It's a really good show, so check them out on YouTube and subscribe to them. Yeah, great. And then Oscar, tomorrow we have a big match preview.
Two. Double whammy tomorrow, 6 o'clock. We're doing the big match preview. We're straight on with that, guys, so make sure you get locked in on that one. And then 8 o'clock, we've got Before the Whistle Blows. And I think I've got a funny feeling the West Ham fan that we know, Corey, might have a couple of things to say about Elena's Tottenham, to be fair. Might be a couple of choice words there, to be fair. But we'll wait and see. But yeah, make sure you check us out on Before the Whistle Blows. And yeah, I guess we'll leave it there. Obviously, Saturday, got a watch-alongs. We've got the post-match content. Hopefully, I'll have my studio up and running. I have known to my Wi-Fi providers. I've let them know. Tell them what you told them.
Tell them what you told them, Oscar.
Right. No. Oh,
tell them what you told them.
I might have made out YouTube with 1 million subscribers and let the subscribers down what I said. But it got the job done. Somehow I should say it got the job done. It doesn't matter the presentation, it doesn't matter how nice it was, it got the job done. I'm getting the Wi-Fi sorted. I'm not going to have you lot moaning at me anymore. So there we go. That's the main thing. But yeah, what I did was as well, I copied and pasted all the comments I get about my Wi-Fi. And I think there's even an account now I saw the other day called Oscar's Wi-Fi. So there you go. So that's it. I'm getting mocked. It's not even my fault. And that's it.
You better sort this out.
I should have done a video just on the phone call, shouldn't I, really? I should have just done a video just of the phone call with that lot.
Brilliant.
But anyway, we'll leave it there anyway. We will see you tomorrow. Anyway, guys, make sure you check out Neil For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast and Chris at Rivalry Aside. See you later, guys. We'll do the little jingle as well to end off.
Up the Villa.
Yes.